Parents continue to force me to babysit, berate me when I did exactly what they wanted. This started last week, and I had no idea my little brother was trying to continue this torment until earlier tonight. I'll start with what happened then. A few nights ago, I was enjoying dinner with my family, before my brother swung his leg into me and kicked my leg. My parents didn't even react, and expected me to just deal with it and move on. A few days later, I had just finished vacuuming the house. I sat down on my bed and relaxed, but was then disrupted by the sound of the vacuum again. I walked outside, and saw my brother vacuuming the places I'd checked thoroughly. I told him we didn't need to vacuum there, and as soon as I walked near him he dropped the vacuum and punched me. According to my parents, that was my fault, and I was supposed to move on. Yesterday, I came home from work after a long and tiring day, and my parents needed to go out for the night. I had no idea about this, and they sprung it on me out of nowhere. They expected me to know, and were rather irritated that I didn't, even though they didn't explain. They ordered me to make dinner immediately. Luckily there were some leftovers in the fridge I could heat up. I went to the kitchen, and began heating up the leftover chicken. Once it had been heated up, I split up the container into 2 parts using a fork. I filled one bowl for me, and another bowl for my little brother. I kept the remaining chicken in the container for somebody else, if they wanted to eat it for lunch or dinner. My little brother then walked into the kitchen, and snatched the container and the fork away from me, and dumped the rest into his bowl. I kindly asked him to give the fork back, and told him that I was saving the rest of the chicken for someone else that might be hungry, but as I should have known, that was met by yells and verbal abuse. I quickly apologized for making dinner for him, and then he started yelling horrible things at me. In his words, or what I can remember at least, he said, "You're the worst big brother, you failed at being a brother, you're so king overprotective, I hate you. I'm sorry that mom and dad have to deal with you." These words deeply hurt me, and I decided to retreat to another room for some alone time. As I sat there, I could still hear him yelling obscenities at me, and I was crying. I then noticed a dusting brush that had been broken in half, and threw it into the ground in sheer anger. I know I should have not done that, as that was rather immature, but I couldn't think of expressing my rage and sorrow in any other way. He saw this, and walked into the room I was in. He picked it up, and threw it at me. It nearly hit my head, and I threw up my arms to defend myself. I then got up from where I was sitting, and he ran away instantly. This isn't the first time he's thrown things at me either. He once threw a pen that almost hit me in the eye. I was almost finished my dinner, and I thought that was the end of it. I was mistaken. He walked into the room while I wasn't paying attention, and jammed the fork he was using into my arm. It actually drew blood, and I tried to defend myself. He ran off again, but I couldn't bring myself to chase after him. I was still recovering from the embarrassment and true horror I experienced during Halloween. I finished eating my dinner, and cried to myself in my room. I felt alone and unsafe. Then I heard the sound of the garage door opening, and my parents returning from their party. I tried to explain what happened, as I couldn't handle this myself. I tried talking it out with my little brother, but that didn't work. Their response was the usual. Deal with it yourself. I tried to explain again that I needed help, but they instructed me to work it out with him, and it wasn't their problem. I went back to my room, annoyed. Now, this afternoon. I had just come home from another long day at work, and I'm finally getting a break. I've finished all my work, and need to wait for a special celebration next year in January, which is when I'll be returning there. I sat down, put everything away, and began watching Jujutsu Kaisen and playing Pokemon Scarlet on my Switch. I'd already told my dad about my good news, so I was just waiting for Mum to get home so I could tell her as well. She eventually did come home, and I walked up to her room to tell her about my news. I waited in the doorway, and waited for her to get ready and put her stuff away before I could talk to her. As I stood there, I heard my little brother come up behind me. He said the words, "Hey Mom," in a welcoming voice, but then that voice turned into an aggravated tone for absolutely no reason. I remember him saying the words, "Oh my God," before stomping away. I tried asking him what was wrong later, but he told me to just F***K off. I told my mom, and she was very happy for me as well. I thought my life was about to turn in the right direction, but I was wrong again. Later, when we were having dinner, my little brother decided to speak about last night, and how awful I was to him. They believed all his lies, and I tried to explain what happened. I kicked him first during that time he kicked me, and I turned off the vacuum so he punched me. They believed this and berated me for acting like his parent and babysitter, even though that is exactly what they told me to do. I tried to talk to them about how they were wrong about all this and tell them what happened, free of my brother's lies, but I was cut off again for being disrespectful. My mother then started screaming and berating me about how her life was so hard, and she wanted us to pretend to get on and be happy with each other, and use me as her emotional punching bag again. I was resisting the urge to cry, knowing that it would only make things worse. They'd yell at me for crying too. My brother then brought up the fact that I said, "My parents are using me as a scapegoat and mental punching bag." I've never said that to him. He may have heard me muttering that at some point. This only caused more yelling, and I felt incredibly stressed out. I tried to leave the table multiple times, but I was dragged back there verbally, even though I wanted to say no. I was forced to listen to how my little brother doesn't have any more compassion for me left since I'm such a bad brother. My parents tried to have us finish up with things we enjoyed so they could escape to watch their scripted live-action shows. I told them I was happy with the shiny Pokemon I'd recently acquired in Scarlet, while my brother rambled on about how he could no longer enjoy the things I loved, as I sucked all the joy out of them, just because I liked them. Which were his exact words. Also, he wasn't aiming for me when he threw the brush. Even if he didn't purposely aim, I didn't know that, and my parents expected me to. After I left the table, I sat in my room and cried. I felt awful. I was forced to listen to more lies and verbal abuse from my family, all because of one simple fact. I dared to make dinner for my little brother. On a short note, during my Halloween adventures, my parents didn't come with us because they wanted to watch TV and get drunk. On another short note, I have a dream. I want to be adopted by Midnight and Mount Lady from My Hero Academia, Mikima from Chainsaw Man, or Professor Sada from Pokemon. It is a wonderful dream, and I want it to come true someday. Thank you all for listening to my story.